Hello, today we're going to be talking about a breakthrough camera for Fujifilm. It was the Finepix F20. It was released for not very much money actually back in 2006 and really made people aware of the super CCD low noise capabilities. It was one of a range of cameras released at the time, but I will only be focusing on the F20 today. I may talk about some of these others and some other models briefly.
This is my New York. Welcome to Top of the Rock.
This is the box that the camera came in. For that age of camera, they were always well packaged. It was quite a market for the cameras before the smartphones came along and started to steal their thunder. So this is the camera in here. Let's put that to one side. Let's just take a few things out and see what we have. Okay, this is just a case for an XD memory card. And if you're not aware, this is what they look like. This is an M version card, so I believe this is a slower sort of speed card. It's not too bad in terms of memory size. It's 2 gigabytes, and you have to remember this camera is quite low on megapixels, so 6.3, so you can still fit quite a lot on one of these cards. So that's the card. Oh, actually, that pouch was for the battery. Let's have a look at the battery quickly. So to be aware, for this camera, you're looking at a NP70, and what I found above probably all of my sort of collectible compact cameras, the Fuji ones seem to retain power the best, and very rarely you have to replace those batteries. This is like an original battery from the time, so let's put that in. We've got a cable here for video, so you've got video and you've got sound. That's it. So that's that. The other cable is quite useful for getting the data off the camera. So this is the data cable, USB. Like a lot of the phones and cameras around the time, a lot of them had their own specialised connectors. So getting hold of some of these are quite hard. You don't really need to rely on a data cable. What you can do is just get yourself one of these or something like this, a bit smaller. So these are just multi-card readers, and if you get one that's a few years old, you will have support for sort of Sony memory stick cards, but also XD, and this one supports smart media as well, which is quite an old format, and standard sort of compact flash as well. So let's put those down. Actually, a couple of ways of charging the battery. You can choose to charge the battery in a third-party charger. So as long as the standalone unit can touch these contacts, and what you want to do is make sure it touches the positive and the negative, then that's one way of charging the battery, but you will obviously have to take the battery out of the camera. And I've done a video about some of those battery chargers that you can get that are adaptable to different battery sizes and capacities and even voltages. So this is the standard power supply. I will hold that right up like that because it's probably quite important to some people who haven't got one of these. So this is what the camera is looking for. It's a DC 5 volt, 1.5 amps, so quite high on the amps, and it's got the standard connector where you might have a old cassette recorder or radio that's got this sort of lead connection on. So it's just the standard sort of 2-pin on the side here. So this adapter, it's quite good because you can use this for traveling. It's 100 volts to 240 volts. So that's good to take on holiday. So I'm in the UK, could go abroad to the States and use this. So that's quite good. And that's what the end looks like. So looking at this as well, does it mention? Yeah, so it's a positive pin in the middle, which is standard on most things really. But if you are going to get an adapter, just make sure that you have enough amps to power the camera and don't go over on the volts. So the amps can go high, you can have a high rating there, but the DC output should be 5 volts. So that's that. And then we've got the main manual. This manual actually is just for English speakers, so there's no other market in here. There would have been a separate manual for each country. that the camera was released in. So it's quite comprehensive actually, and it's something that I've rarely looked at. So that probably shows how easy to use the camera is if you just want to use the camera in standard sort of automatic mode. And yeah, it's over 100 pages. So that's the manual there. I like the way it supports Windows XP. So in terms of reading the card, I would suggest probably not bothering to install this software if you have got a disk. And that's because obviously times have moved on. We're on God knows what version of Windows now, but we're certainly not Windows XP. And you don't need these drivers. If you've got a card reader like I just showed you, then that will allow you to mount the card as a drive in Windows if you're using Windows, and you can get your photos and video off of the camera that way. There's a nice quick start guide there. It's really nice to see all this stuff, but I mean it did produce lots of waste, so I guess this is why a lot of manufacturers of electronic goods kind of put everything on the web, not have big thick copies like that, because you've got to think about the environment. Yeah, all basic stuff. Loading battery, charging the battery, you want to do that before you start. Setting up the camera, so it supports different languages. And setting the date. So the date here is 2006, so that's probably what this camera should read when I turn it on, because I've just had to put a battery into it. And then it's telling you how to take pictures. Make sure you've got the camera switch selected, press the button down to focus sort of halfway, and then fully down to take the picture. And then you've got a review where you can view the images. So that's very basic. There's stuff on the back about installing software, which I don't think I will be doing. And then get your camera free and join the exciting photo community. This wasn't done, so paid full price for that, I guess. Well, someone did, not me. I got this camera second hand. This camera came out in 2006, and it follows on the back of several other models. Now, the first model would have been the F10, and the F10 had the same sensor, but it wasn't as highly developed at that time. So the pictures are good, but they're not of the standard of the later cameras. So we had the F10 and the F11. I think the F11 had more control over picture taking, so that was something useful to have. The F30 was actually the camera that came out before the F20. So the F30, which I can show you on the box, the F30 came out before the F20, but it was a more expensive camera. You had more control, it had a better back screen, but it was more expensive. So the F20 was made really as a bit of a budget camera, and they removed some of the manual features. Let's have a look at the camera now. In my hand, you can see the flash, a really nice finish here, nice sort of typeset for the name, Finepix, Fujifilm. There's a mention of the sensor, Super CCD, and 6.3 mega. This here is the microphone on the front, and we can see underneath there's a speaker, that's for playback. There's a mount there, and a battery and memory card compartment there, which is really quite nice. There's a safety feature built in. If the camera's switched on and this opens, it will then go into shutdown mode and the lens will retract in. So I've shown you the battery already. I'll just show you how the memory card fits in. So this is an H type card, and that fits in like so. Looking at this side of the camera, we have the AV out and the voltage going in. So that's the two connectors there. On the top, we've got the name of the camera, so the model, power, the selector there for the camera or video. On this side, we have controls for zooming, review, a jump to the Finepix menu, the F menu, the standard menu. We've got some settings here for getting rid of pictures, macro mode, flash mode, and sub timer. There's a button to reduce what gets displayed on the back, and there's a button there for going into the kind of anti-shake mode, but it's not a stabilize option. It just works on shutter speed. This is where the strap would go into, and that is the outside of the camera. Okay, I'm going to turn this on now, and quite a bright screen. We can see it says 2006, so I'm going to play along with it rather than set it now. Don't have much room here. Let's move the boxes back a bit and get that a bit sharper. Okay. Could try macro mode. There you go. Let's turn that off. Standard modes here. Timer modes. That's the brightness for the LCD. So when you're outside and it's very bright, you can temporarily raise the brightness so you can see things, and then best to knock it back down again to save your battery. You can get rid of all your annoying kind of text if it annoys you. You can have the rule of thirds. You can have a review mode as you're taking pictures, and back to normal. So red eye is selected at the moment, so I'm just going to go to suppressed, go back. Have I done that? Yeah, that's right. So if we go into here, the first thing that I used to do on this camera was to get rid of the beep. So that's what I'm going to try to do now. If I can remember where it was. There we go. So you can just turn that off. That's nice. So let's have a look at the various modes. Shooting mode, set to auto, natural light, natural, flash, portrait, landscape, sport, night, fireworks. So these are all your scene modes. Quite straightforward to get to. High speed shooting mode. Continuous, so long period, final three, top three, and then setup. Image display, so that's the amount of time when you're going through. Frame number, continuous. Autofocus illuminator, that's on. Digital zoom is switched off, that's good. LCD mode. Power save. Let's go back to that. Then we're on to the next round of things. So we've got date and time, so we can go in and obviously set that. I showed you the beep. There's also a shutter volume, so if you're somewhere like a museum and you don't want to be noticed, then best to turn that off. Playback volume of the video you can adjust as well. So I'm just going to go back for now. Then we have LCD brightness. So it's set to 0, but you can dim it. I suppose it depends on the time of year, when you're using the camera, that type of thing. If you are out and about using it as a kind of party camera, then you could get away with having a lower LCD just to help save your battery a little bit. So we can format the card here, the XD card, get rid of everything. This is then into the final kind of page on the menu, the language that the camera's working in. Yeah, I think we're going to stick with English. So as you can see, every time you select something, it kind of sets you back. There's an auto power off for 2 minutes, so that will preserve your battery. There's a time difference, so when you're away, you can change the time, but not worry about changing the home time, so that's quite useful. It's just the information that gets stored on the photo. We've got background colour, so by default I've got it set to blue, but you can set it to anything you like really. Video system is set to PAL, leave that as that. We've got reset, resets all of the settings to default, so we'll cancel that for now. I would imagine they probably are all pretty well set to default. And back to the beginning. That's the camera menu. Let's have a look at this option here. This is now telling us that the ISO is auto, so it will choose the correct ISO based on how bright everything is. Now what you could do is you could have a go at setting that to something else. You can set the ISO to a known ISO value, and then you can limit the camera from going above that. So the way to do that would be to change the ISO. First of all, you need to move it from a different shooting mode. We'll go to manual mode. Then you can see in here it's got ISO auto and it's got it set to 1600. So if we press this F, we should be able to go in and choose, like knock it down basically. You can say as well that you want to set it to auto, but don't ever go higher than 400 ISO. But I find that for maybe indoor shots, you can go as high as 800, possibly get away with that. But obviously you don't want to be taking 800 outside in daylight, and you'd rather get away with 100 or 200 if you're kind of outside. So the 400 is quite a reasonable option there, because it will choose a lower ISO when you're out and about, and then when you're back indoors it won't let you go any higher than 400. So I'll set that. Let's have a look at the quality. So this is standard default for the 6.3 megapixel camera, so that's what I've chosen. And we go back in again, and these modes here are trying to replicate the old Fujifilm itself, the actual physical film in old school cameras. So we've got chrome, which is giving you the chrome look, or the black and white. So chrome is possibly giving you a bit more saturation, a bit more colour. I'll leave it on standard because it's more natural. So that covers the shooting. Let's have a look at the video recording. So the video recording, it's only got 6 minutes 55 seconds left on the card where it can record to. The files do take up a reasonable amount of space, obviously compared to pictures, and you can go in and go further down to 320, but in practice you'd probably leave that at 640. When you go to do your recording, you need to specify the zoom first. It won't let you zoom in and out while you're recording. So let's go to how we want it and start recording like so. And there is the recording mode in mono. It works surprisingly well actually. It really is quite good. I use this camera a few times to record some music, concerts and things, and it did a really good job. It managed to handle the loudness of the concert as well, whereas some cameras, the microphone would have just struggled. But this camera picked up the music really, really well. Yes, it was in mono, but it wasn't distorted. It was good. It sounded good. So a good camera for kind of making videos. Let's play that back, shall we? So, and there is the recording mode in mono. It's worked surprisingly well actually. You can see up here progress bar to show how long the video has got before it reaches the end. It did a really good job. It managed to handle the loudness. So to summarise, this camera had a better quality lens. It was good for all sort of shots. So compared to the earlier F10, F11 camera, the lens was a success, and the quality of the images was better due to the enhanced processing of the Super CCD. The Fuji Finepix F20 really hit a sweet spot because it was priced at a very decent and competitive price for the time. So although it missed out on some of the operating modes of the more expensive cameras, if you wanted just a basic point and shoot camera that worked very well for low light photography, then this was really all you needed. The battery has a capacity to take 300 shots, which is more than enough. Also, the battery itself was quite easy to carry, so you could get a hold of a spare one to take with you. And the good thing with this camera is the startup time is very, very quick. So let's just do that from the front so you can see. It's kind of ready to go. Those who are probably saying, well, 6.3 megapixels isn't great. It was ample for standard photo sizes, so 6x4 and 7x5, and going beyond that, it was ideal. The good thing about it is by going for only 6.3 megapixels across this particular sensor meant that it was very low in noise. The camera features the 6th generation version of the Super CCD sensor, and it is classed as being one of the best because 6.3 was ample. When they went to the F20 camera, the 8.3, a lot of reviewers did say that the quality wasn't as good as on the lower megapixel cameras with the 6.3. So the sweet spot really are those cameras from 2006, and the cameras were starting with the F30, the F20, the F31 FD, which was face detection, and the F40 FD. So they all used the 6th generation Super CCD sensor. Now, I did another review on my channel of the Finepix S6500 FD bridge camera, and that as well features this same sensor. So really good quality sensor, a classic from the time. And it took several years for other manufacturers to kind of catch up. One of the drawbacks, I would say, with the Fujifilm cameras was the image stabilization. So although they were working on the quality of the photos in low light and having less noise in low light, being able to take decent pictures, they kind of didn't focus so much on the stabilization. So to get decent pictures, it was a case of having a faster shutter speed, whereas other manufacturers were actually looking at proper stabilization. The camera uses the Real Photo Processor 2, and this was the difference to the F10 and the F11 essentially. So it was in terms of getting more out of the same chip. So although you will see the badge that says Super CCD on the F10 camera, it isn't doing the same job as well as on the later generation cameras. So I think that covers it really. A really good camera to travel with. Nice quality camera, feels nice. Could stand a few knocks as well, which is always good. And at the time, something that really caught a lot of people's attention and was very popular. Very accessible as well, in being able to take decent pictures, which is, at the end of the day, you want to grab your camera, point and shoot and get decent pictures, and this was a very good camera for that. So thank you for watching this video. Any questions, please put them into the comments and I will do some more videos for you in the future. Bye for now.